All right, let's dive into a really challenging idea today, one that comes from our source material, the idea of truly, completely knowing yourself. And, spoiler alert, it's probably not what you think it is. In fact, getting this wrong is described as a kind of slow, elegant suicide. So, yeah, let's unpack what that actually means and why it's so important.
So, let me just ask you straight up. Do you really know yourself, deep down? And I bet most of us, if we're honest, would say, yeah, of course I do. But the argument here is that what we usually call self-knowledge isn't knowledge at all. It's a story. A story we've told ourselves over and over again until it just feels like the truth.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? We aren't really looking at the cold, hard data of our lives. No, we're storytellers. We're constantly editing our own history to make sure we're the hero, or at least the well-meaning victim. We're crafting a narrative, and we've gotten so good at it that we've completely mistaken the story for reality.
Okay, so that brings us to our first big section. We're going to start picking apart that lie. And to do that, we first have to get really clear on what self-knowledge isn't before we can even begin to understand what it actually is.
You know, it's kind of wild how this idea just immediately sweeps so much off the table. All those personality tests, all the journaling about your feelings, knowing your favorite bands or your political opinions. The source calls all of that decorations. They're just the stuff you hang on the surface. They are not the core of who you are.
So if it's not about what you believe or what you like, then what is it about? Well, it's about one thing: what you do. True self-knowledge is about taking a brutally honest look at your actions, especially those actions you take when nobody's around to judge you. What's your default setting? What are you always running away from? That place, right there, that's where the truth lives.
But ignoring all this, it isn't some harmless little blind spot. As we're about to see, the price we pay for lying to ourselves, well, it's incredibly high. And here it is. This is the central warning, the absolute gut punch of this whole idea. Think about it. Every single choice you make is based on your understanding of yourself. So if that understanding is built on a lie, your decisions are going to be flawed. Over time, that quietly poisons everything: your potential, your relationships, your own integrity. It's a death by 1,000 tiny self-inflicted cuts.
Let's be real. We don't do this for no reason. Lying to ourselves is a survival tactic. It works. In the short term, anyway. It helps us fit in, it helps us feel good about who we are, and it helps us dodge the messy, uncomfortable truth of our own contradictions. The only problem is, all those benefits are on a very short-term loan.
I just love this metaphor. It's so perfect. Every little lie, every small self-deception, it doesn't just vanish. It's like a debt, and it's compounding every single day. Sooner or later, that bill comes due. And that's what we call a midlife crisis, or a breakdown. It's not some random event that happens to us. It's the moment the whole structure we've built on lies finally, inevitably, collapses.
So, if we're deep in this psychological debt, how do we start to pay it off? Well, our source gives us a framework to start confronting the truth. And it all begins with realizing there isn't just one you.
So the idea is that we're all juggling these three different selves. There's the public self, right? The mask we wear for the world. Then there's the believed self, which is the story we tell ourselves. And then there's the enacted self. That's who shows up when you're stressed, tired, or when you think no one's looking. Most of us spend our lives trying to align the first two, and we pretend the third one doesn't even exist. But that third self, that's where the real you is hiding.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. You can tell yourself you value loyalty all day long, but if your pattern is to ghost people the second things get difficult, then you aren't loyal. You just wish you are. And the crucial thing here is that self-knowledge isn't about judging yourself for that gap. It's simply about having the courage to measure it honestly.
So how do you measure it? This brings us to the core tool proposed in this text, something it calls the brutal inventory. And honestly, the name says it all. The very first rule of this inventory is that you have to strip away the story, all of it. It's not about finding reasons or blaming your past. Those are just more narrative, more excuses.
And this is the big one, isn't it? The one we all love to use. Oh, that's not the real me. But the inventory is absolutely ruthless on this point. It basically says, yes, it is. Your repeated actions are who you really are. What you do is real. Everything else is just wishful thinking.
So this is it. This is the whole inventory. Just these 4
Simple, factual questions. There's no why in there, no room for justification. It's just a cold, hard log of your behavior. What did you do? How many times? When does it happen? And what was the result? That's the data. Anything else is just decoration.
Okay, I know what you're probably thinking. This whole process sounds awful. And yeah, it's not easy. But what's on the other side? What's the payoff for all this brutal honesty? You start to build what the source calls the aligned self.
So what does that look like? Well, an aligned person is operating from a place of reality. Since they actually know their limits and their real patterns, they stop making promises they can't keep. They don't have to posture or constantly signal how good they are. They're not desperately chasing new identities because they're comfortable with the one they actually have.
And this quote just captures that feeling perfectly. Think about all the energy we waste maintaining the lies, managing our contradictions, performing an identity for other people. An aligned person gets all that energy back. So there's less frantic motion, yeah. But the movement that's left is direct, it's powerful, and it's real.
And really, that's the final and most important takeaway here. This whole journey isn't about becoming some flawless, perfect person. That's just another story, another lie. The real work is so much simpler and so much harder. It's just about closing the gap between who you pretend to be and who your actions prove you are. The work is to remove the lie.